The spackle is done with the couple exceptions, a little bit of touch up. The room is primed. The carpet is down. I am going to trim out the doors and the windows and get the bifold doors installed, and then eventually we'll have the molding going in. And that and a coat of paint. Slap up a ceiling fan and put the smoke detector back in. A couple covers over the receptacles, switches, and this room will be finished. So I pre-cut my lumber to trim out the doors and windows. And basically I'm going to run the side pieces all the way from the top to the bottom, kind of like a pre-hung door jamb. And I'm going to line up the back edge of the lumber with the back edge of the window frame. Then for the top and bottom, they will be spaced accordingly in between the left and the right sides to also line up with the edge of the frame here and the edge of the frame down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure and nail it together outside of the window frame. That way I can face nail straight through with my brad nailer. And then I'll put it in and I will shim it and true it up, make it level and square and plumb. I hope you guys can see. I don't have a cameraman, but I need one desperately. These are, I think, 2-inch brads. Pretty much the biggest ones this gun can take, maybe 2 1/4. And I'm out. Got it in. Now I just gotta get my shims ready and tack it in place. I'm going to put them with the sharp sides facing each other so that I can slide them together and they'll get thicker as they go. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But first things first, I want these to fit without me having to trim them. So I'm going to try and break them a little bit evenly so that they're thinner than my jam material is. Let me get this ready to go. Now the window is square and plumb and level, so if I just look at the edge of the window, I can move this according to that and use that to help level me. I just want my exposure to be the same. And it's almost the same thickness as the shake or the shim is, so I can even use that as a bit of a guide to get me in the neighborhood. And then I can shim accordingly. Oh, I may need less than a whole shake over here. The opening is a little bit tight. Let's see what we get over on this side. All right, this side needs to be shimmed pretty substantially. So I'm going to put my shakes in over here, move it until my reveal is the same top to bottom. All right, I think almost almost where I want to be. All right. I'm going to tack it now. Oh boy, what did I knock over? And now I may have to break the thick part of a shim off to make it the right size to fit over here. You can scar these with a knife and then they'll usually snap. I've got some knots though that are fighting me. But let's see here. I don't know what happened to my knife. You can also take them and put them in the miter saw and trim them down, if that makes things easier for you. I don't recommend this. I should be doing this on a floor or a workbench so I don't stab myself. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay. Now let's see what we get. All right, I'm going to slide this until it's a little snug and then push it in, if the tar paper will allow me to do so. All right, now I can get a tack in over here. This is just taking up the space between the window and the sheetrock, and then molding will go from here over. And if you caulk everything, you'll have an airtight seal. I did red guard outside. I put insulation in here. I got an airtight seal anyway, but obviously the tighter the better, as far as, you know, holding in your heat and your air conditioning. All right, I'll do the same thing down at the bottom, just so if somebody bumps this, it doesn't pull my nails out and come apart and look like crap. And I may put a shim or two on the top. Shouldn't need it. Nailing the molding to the framing and to this is going to make it pretty darn sturdy. But, you know, people put blinds up and whatnot. I just like to make sure that everything I do is nice and strong so I don't have any failures. All right, so that window's done. It's shimmed down the bottom quarter, the top quarter. I put a shim in and then I just slid the block until it got snug. Checked my exposure to make sure I wasn't warping it. Same thing over here. I flipped it around the other way, slid the block till it got snug, got a nail up through, and shimmed it up in this top corner, bottom corner. The windowsill, I accidentally let it sit on the wood. I should have picked it up a little bit just to center it in the hole. But the window was sitting on the sill, so this piece of wood is sitting on the sill. It's level, and that lined it up for me perfect. And we can move on to the next window. Now you'll notice on this one, I did lift it up a little bit, which gave me room to get insulation in there. It helped me center it up. I could have went a little higher. There's more space on the bottom than on the top. But I think the plywood was fighting me, and it was a long day. And it's centered left to right. I think we're going to be just fine. We're going to do the same thing here. I will measure out how far up to nail the bottom plate, how far down to nail the top plate. The sides will run wild, top to bottom. And then I'll shim it and center it up, make it look pretty. The door jambs are installed and leveled, and I was going to put the doors in next. That way when I put the molding on, I could really perfect the door jambs, because you can kind of use the molding to take out twists and whatnot. But I need a bunch of drill bits, and I forgot my drill bits. So today is going to be molding day. Yay! For molding, you start with the doors, and I'll show you why. I know my camera skills are terrible, guys. Please bear with me. I'm trying to get better, I promise. So, I'll show you why you do the doors first, but first let me show you how to do the doors. What you're going to want to do is measure, but you want to give yourself a little reveal. You want to leave a little bit of this uncovered, and it just looks better that way. So if I do 81 1/8, that'll give me an 1/8 inch of exposure here. I'll do an 1/8 inch of exposure here. It'll be an 1/8 of an inch of door jamb showing all the way around. And it just looks really good that way. And it makes things easier. It gives you a place to kind of hide minor imperfections. It's really just the way to go. So let me go cut 2 of those. And then we'll measure for the middle piece. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go for an 1/8 of an inch exposure here and an 1/8 of an inch above this line, which will give us an 1/8 inch of exposure with the top piece. And we're going to nail it. I put 1 nail in so I could go to the camera and get the nail gun. But I'm going to maintain that 1/8 inch, put another nail in. I'm going to angle out a little bit to get this door jamb. And I'm going to angle in a little bit through the meat of it here to get the 2x4 through the sheetrock. I think I can actually go straight in from the feel of things. And nope, I didn't get it. Let's try angling it out a little bit. I think that got it. Okay. So, you know, you can peek around here and see what you got. I think I actually got the outer 2x4. The inner 2x4 is right there. So I could actually shoot. Let me make sure I got my exposure right. Boom. And when you're done, you're going to put a dab of caulk or spackle over these. If they're sticking out at all, you got to hammer them flat. And then if you have a nail set, you put a nail set on there. I find the kind, there's the kind with a very sharp point to go into the hand nailed nails, and you put the point into the dimple on the top of the nail. These don't have a dimple, so there's also a cupped kind that you put over the head of the nail and push it in and get these countersunk. Just like when you're nailing up sheetrock, you want to have this indented so you can put something over it. You don't want it flush or sticking out, because then when you try to put something over it, it's going to bulge out and it won't look good. This side obviously has the 45-degree angle cut the other way. Let me get my drop cloth out of there. Go down and kiss the carpet. See how we're looking? I'm looking a little high, so I'm going to push down on this and give my 1/8 inch exposure and the 1/8 inch above this surface, and go into the meat of it here, shoot into the jamb, into the 2x4. I'll work that 1/8 inch exposure going down, but if you want to, you can leave it, and I'll tell you why. We're going to cut this top piece, and I want these joints to be perfect. So I can work this in or out, work this in or out, and make these joints perfect, nail everything, and then I can bow this in or out for the proper exposure on the way down, and it's going to look really good. Another trick is you may find yourself with open joints on your 45s here. You can take a cedar shake, stick it in, and just push, push, push until both half on one piece, half on the other. It will lean them out and close your joint up. That only works obviously if the joint is open back here. But you can do that, close your joint, nail it, trim this with a knife, and your joints will look great. You can also, if you're going to be painting it, you can paint it, spackle it, caulk it, but if you want to do it professionally and properly, and if you want to also have it look good when you're doing stained wood, you can't put putty or caulk. You have to make the joints work to your benefit, to your advantage. So now I'm going to measure. Try to keep in mind which way your 45-degree angles are going. I'm going to measure from tip to tip up here. I've got just under 35 and a half. I'm going to cut at 35 and a half. I can always trim a hair off if it's not fitting right. And I'd rather take a skim off than cut it too short and be trying to finagle it to not look terrible. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but if you look at the top of this piece and the top of this piece, there's an imaginary line. And that imaginary line is going to cover those screw holes that I told you about in the sheetrock video. That's why I didn't spackle those. You're not going to see them. So let me go cut my piece and see what we get. All right, I cut my piece and you can see we are indeed a bit on the long side. So I'm going to take that back over to the saw and I will take a skim off. Right, I took off the thickness of the blade, approximately 1/8 inch, and we're still too long, but look how much space we accumulated just from taking an 1/8 inch off. I think I'm going to go take another 1/8 inch off and we're going to be just fine. So don't get carried away. If that is sitting way up high and you think, oh my God, I got to take an inch off, you're wrong. A little bit makes a big difference. And you could be sitting way up here and you take off a chunk and next thing you know, you're too short. So don't get carried away. Don't get frustrated. Patience is a virtue. Wood is expensive. You know, take your time and get it right and don't waste your time in your lumber. Measure twice, cut 15 times, whatever it takes. It took another skim or two, but we're good to go now. And just like before, I'm going to shoot down into the door jamb. And up into the 2x4. In some cases, you may have to shoot through the molding, one piece into the other piece to lock the corners together, but I think we're looking pretty good here. And that joint is tight enough to make me happy. That should close up with paint, maybe a touch of spackle. And now I can work my way down and get stapling the jamb over here. Into the 2x4. Let me see if you can see. And I'm happy with the joint. I'm gonna just work this down. Make my knees pop. Now see, this is a little bit warped. My exposure is coming down to nothing here. So I'm going to nail the bottom where the exposure looks good. And I'm going to bow this out right here. And then here it looks a little big. I'm going to bow this in just a whisker. And, you know, molding's pretty flexible. It's easy to work with. And this looks pretty good. I'm just going to nail this throughout. Looks like we could fill in a little bit right there. Maybe right here. Here. Sorry guys, I'm recording with my phone and I got a phone call. Stopped recording. But we got that all nailed. It looks pretty good. And now I'm going to move on to the other doors. And now we'll do the other two the same way we did this one. Just a heads up, the windows are pretty much the same thing. You keep your reveal the same, you measure out. This isn't nailed yet, so that's why it looks so terrible, but I'm going to just trim this out all the way around like a picture frame. But if you wanted to, remember when I shimmed this out? You could have shimmed this out further with something that comes out and then gets thicker and had a windowsill. And then this molding would have just stopped at the top of the windowsill. And you would have cut a piece that would have went thick side up under the windowsill. And you could have just trimmed it on either end to make it look neat. You know, take a look next time you're in the house at how the windows are set and see what you like. But here we're just going for simple and modern, and that's going to be a picture frame all the way around, no windowsill. It's just something else where people would put tchotchkes and make things look crowded and crappy. Okay, the doors and the windows are done. I could have waited on the windows, but I just figured I got the air gun going, I got the molding being cut, why not? So the reason we start with the doors and the windows don't matter is because now I know exactly how long to make my pieces of baseboard between the legs of the doors. So that piece will be cut to fit between. There'll be a piece cut there to go to the corner, then from the corner over to that leg of that door, from the leg of this door to that corner, to that corner, to the leg of that door, from the leg of this door to this corner, to that corner, and back to where we started. Out to that leg, and we've made a full circle. And then inside the closet will also get done. I will do the inside of the door jambs, but I bought these packets. Pickings are slim at the store. So there's these pre-cut packets, they're roughly door height. But the problem with that is when you use them around the window, you have a lot of waste. And I've got those pieces that really aren't long enough to do anything. These pieces that really aren't long enough to do anything. But I can put them together and just have seams. And that'll be fine inside the closet. Outside the closet, I'd rather have one piece from point A to point B with no seams. So that's the game plan. There won't be as much waste. I'll use this stuff up in the closet for the door frame. In the meanwhile, I can put baseboard molding across the back and across the walls, but I just can't come out where the legs are going to go because I don't know my length yet. And again, I'll do the molding out here, and whatever pieces I have left, I can make seams and use them in the closets. Because who cares if the molding doesn't look fantastic and perfect inside the closets. All right, so let's get started. I trimmed out the inside of the closet to match the outside. Alrighty, we are going to start caulking our molding doors and windows. Close up some gaps so it's ready for paint. Let me show you some tricks you might not have been aware of. A lot of your caulk guns have a little cutter built in there. And you can stick the tip of the caulk gun in, and it nips the tip off for you. Then they have this rod underneath that breaks the membrane inside the caulk tube. And now you're ready to shoot some caulk. As good a place to start as any. second verse, same as the first. Boom. What am I, emerald all of a sudden? Boom. Since when do I say that? I could probably use a catchphrase, but that's not going to be it. Okay, then after you get the caulk in there, if you don't do a good job, like I don't do a good job, you just run the tip of your finger over it. You may have to wet your finger so that it's not so sticky. You get a little glob built up, you come back to the spots where you missed and fill them in. And that looks pretty darn good if I do say so myself.